That's a pretty good response. So you're awake now. We'll see how long that lasts. I'll do my best. If you do feel a little drowsy, please move to the back. This is a little polite thing for me. But listen, I want to thank Ross and Stacy and everybody for asking me to come today and talk a little bit about economic development. But first, I want to congratulate my new commissioner, Poda. Congratulations again. We're excited to have you in Fayette County and to be one of our commissioners. And quite frankly, I want to thank all of you. And congratulations to all of you for running. Some of you, I know for a while, you're running again and running for different offices, Robert. But thank you for your willingness to run, to be engaged. I did about 100 different community visits this year with 100 different counties. And what I heard consistently from my local business community and our chamber folks was that they needed good folks to run for office. And so your willingness to run, to be here, and to get the training you need to do the right job, that means more than you'll ever know. So congratulations and thank you. We're going to talk a little bit about economic development today. Some of you have been in this business a long time, and you could probably get up here and do this talk. But some of you, hopefully we can share a little bit with you. But let me ask you a couple questions first. How many of you, at some point during your campaign this year, said that job creation and economic development was the top priority or one of the top priorities? For those of you that aren't raising your hand, you're lying. And I'm shocked you got elected if you didn't do it. So those of you that were honest and said, yes, it was part of your platform, how many of you also had a platform or talked at length during your campaign about workforce development as a component of economic development? Well, that's 8 of you. Thank you. So those of you that did talk about workforce development, economic development, how many of you actually put together and put out there, here's my 27-plan approach to what I'm going to do as county commissioner to bring jobs to my community? How many of you actually put together a plan? Okay, you're coming to give the speech next. So how many people had plans again? I'm sorry. So 1, 2, and y'all are in the same shirt too. Are you in the same county? Well, okay. Which county? Gilman County. All right, great. So the rest of you come see Gilman County. They have a plan that they'll share. So for you two, I was going to ask everybody, but it's just y'all. Did you meet with your development authority, local chambers, state folks to talk about the types of things that you needed to do in that plan? So you did the time, you did the research before you put the plan out. There's a novel idea. Actually do the research, talk to the people that do it before you put the plan out there. So what I find is when we'll be over here next week with the new state legislators, what I find when I talk to city folks and county folks, everybody runs on economic development. Everybody runs on creating jobs in their community, and that's great because everybody needs to focus on it. But what I find is a lot of times once people get elected, they kind of get into what they're having to do. They're slogging through the budget and all the other fun, wonderful things you've been learning that you signed up for now as a county commissioner. And sometimes they lose sight of what they said during the campaign, which was that we were going to focus on economic development and on job creation. And sometimes you're just trying to do good things for your community, address other issues, and sometimes those will have negative impacts on your ability to be a competitive community and recruit companies. That happened to me. I was the development director in Fayette County after 9/11. And we saw thousands of job losses from the aviation industry. And so here I was, a much younger guy at the time, responsible now for recruiting jobs. And we had new guys get elected to our city council in one of our cities. And in that city, they had had an issue with a big box retailer trying to come in. And so they thought they were doing the right thing when they announced that they were going to have a building moratorium. I stood in front of the city council saying, this is the dumbest thing that you could possibly do because the message you're sending to the development community, to companies is, we're not interested in you when we got thousands of our folks here that are laid off. Unfortunately, 6 months went by. Not one prospect came to our community in that 6 months. Not one state project manager brought a project because the word was out, not just in the city but countywide, that we were closed for business at the beginning of a horrible recession. Now, here's the good news. I got a lot more good stories of what county commissioners and city council members do than the bad. But everything you do, every issue you touch, it builds into this effort of economic development and how competitive your community is going to be. And I want to talk a little bit today about what you can do specifically. If you care about job creation and what you're doing in the community, I want to tell you a few of the things that we've seen that are important. But first, let me tell you a little bit about where we are as a state. Here's the good news. I think you heard from Commissioner Corbin yesterday. I don't know if she shared with you the numbers. But the good news, as a state, we are now 5th in the nation in job creation in the last year. In the last 4 years, the big projects that we've worked, so not retail, not the small businesses, but projects that needed county commission support on property tax abatements or state incentives, Governor Deals announced 1,700 corporate relocations, expansions. That equals 80,000 new jobs that are paying higher than your average wage, and it's about $16 billion worth of new investment. Because of those numbers, we've won, and you've probably heard this and might have even used it in your campaign, we've now been named repeatedly as one of the best states in the country to do business. We take a lot of pride in that at the Chamber, because that's kind of the core of what we do. We want to make sure that Georgia's competitive, just like I hope your local chambers are focused on keeping your local community competitive. So we actually asked the dean, former dean here at the University of Georgia last year, dean of the Grady Business School, we said, Georgia has now won these awards. We see all this economic activity coming in. Can you tell us why? Can you quantify this for us? And this was interesting. It's particularly interesting for elected officials. He said, obviously, our location, our infrastructure is extremely important. We get a leg up on a lot of states because of that. But he says you can draw a direct correlation between things that have been said by some of the companies that have recently moved to Georgia and policies that the Georgia General Assembly enacted, like removing the tax off of energy, or doing tax reform, regulatory reform, any number of things out there. There is a direct correlation between the actions that our elected officials take and the actions that presidents of companies take when they're making a decision where to invest those precious dollars. And remember, a company now can invest those dollars anywhere in the world. And so this whole thing is a highly competitive market that you're entering into if you're saying it's going to be a focus of our community to create jobs. How many of you have read the book, The Coming Jobs War by Jim Clifton? Mayor Rickards read it. Well, you get the gold star, Mayor. I would encourage every one of you here to read it. It's an easy book, because if it wasn't, I couldn't have read it. All right? I've made everyone on my staff, and almost every economic developer, I think, in the state has read this book now. It's called The Coming Jobs War by Jim Clifton. And Jim Clifton is the president of Gallup. Everybody know Gallup polls? That's the interactive part of the presentation. Everybody knows Gallup polls? Yeah, okay. So for almost 70 years, Gallup has been polling folks all over the world. And in this last poll that they did in 2011, they found for the first time the number one issue in every demographic group, in every country and every continent, was not the need for shelter, the need for religious freedom. The number one most important issue was finding a good job. Now that's not a surprise to us, right? That's how we were raised. Go out there and find a good job. It is a surprise in the Middle East. It's a surprise in India. It's a surprise in China. It's a surprise in Brazil. But what you're seeing is this rise of the middle class all over the world, and they know in order to have a good life, they need a good job, and if they're going to have a good job, they've got to be in the right community. And so what Jim goes on to say in this book is that in the future, wars are not going to be fought over borders or religion. They're going to be fought over who gets the jobs. Now, here's the kicker for you guys. He says that the federal government, and this is not going to surprise anybody here, that the federal government is not going to win those wars. He said that the state legislatures will have a huge impact because they'll set the tone of the state to get companies to kind of look their way. But at the end of the day, it's city council members, it's county commissioners, it's local business communities that will win those wars and have the biggest impact on the long-term success of these communities. So you think about that for a minute. You guys in this room have the biggest impact on the ability of your community to keep the job that you've got, grow the companies that are there, start new businesses, and recruit these highly sought-after companies that we're out there recruiting from around the world. That book will give you a lot of good data. It'll give you a lot of good feedback. But let me tell you one of the biggest things that we were seeing that he points out, and he's got all the statistics to back it up, that's pretty good. He says the whole game of economic development is changing. Long years, decades ago, when I started in this business, we were still kind of in the mindset that companies were going to go where they found the cheapest labor. That's kind of what we were probably all taught, right? In business class, when we were taught in high school. Companies from the north go move south because we were cheaper labor. Then companies go move to Mexico because they were cheaper labor than us. And then they go move to Sri Lanka because that was cheaper labor. Anybody realize what's happening now? Anybody heard the term reshoring? Caterpillar, Melanie, they reshored. You brought them back home. They didn't come back to Georgia because it was cheaper labor than what they were getting in Japan. What they're doing now, and these companies, we talk to companies every day, and we're seeing it over and over again, companies are going where they can find the best talent. They're okay to pay a little bit more, but they're having to restructure their whole companies now, and the whole way they do business, because it's all about getting the best talent, not the cheapest talent anymore. Some of our communities, and some of you in the room, you're still betting on the old cheaper labor model. You're not going to be successful if that's the model over the long term. So what does this mean? What do you have to do? Well, listen, guys, these companies are not targeting me anymore. They're targeting millennials. Do we have a millennial here? Do you? One or two millennials? Congratulations.
21-year-old.
21, congratulations. Millennials, biggest group actually larger than the baby boomers. And what they want is a lot different than what I want. You know, what I want in my family, we want a little bit of privacy around our house. We want somewhere from a man cave. We want to be close to church, right? Near a good school. That's not what the millennials want. And in the book, he does a great job of laying it out. They want to be near transit. They want to be in walkable communities. They want a diverse community. They want multiculturalism. They want a quality of life where they can come in and live and find a great job and then find another great job and another great job and stay in that community. They don't want to keep moving around like Ross and I had to do coming up to get the next good job. That changes how you think about economic development. It changes how you think about housing. It makes you think about how you change apartments. I was at one of my members' companies yesterday afternoon, and we were looking out over downtown Atlanta, and we counted 8 new condominium high-rises being built within a 4-acre area. You know why? Because that's what these folks want. Last night, I was having dinner with the new president of the Hawks, and his assistant was with us, and she's from a small South Georgia town near where I grew up in Fitzgerald. Not even graduated from Auburn yet. We'll forgive her. Not everybody's perfect. We'll forgive her that. She's not even graduated yet, and she's got a job with the Hawks. And I said, you know, you're coming a long way from this little town moving to Atlanta. She says, yep, I'm scared to death. And I said, I can understand. I said, well, why are you here instead of going back home? And she said, because I want opportunities that my community doesn't have. That broke my heart a little bit. But that's what she wanted, and she kind of laid out all the different things. It was funny, though, at the end, Lord, because she said, I'll tell you, though, my mom and daddy's scared to death about me being up here. I said, really? She said, yes. She goes, I got to call them when I leave my apartment, call them when I get to the office, call them at lunch, call them when I get back from lunch, call them when I leave the office, call them when I get back home at night. I told her, I said, listen, I'm almost 45, and I still have to call my parents from time to time. That doesn't change. But the fact is that these millennials are going to want different things. And companies are going to go to where they want to be. We've seen 3 companies in the last year move out of the suburbs of Atlanta into downtown Atlanta. And they want to be down there because transit is there, there's nightlife there, there's a quality of life that they feel like, and these presidents have all said the same thing, it will give us the better chance to attract the talent that we need. Now the good news is, not every millennial wants to live in a big urban area. A lot of them do want the suburban lifestyle, they want the rural lifestyle, but you still have to have those amenities there. So, we know what the lay of the land is around the world, right? We know that everybody's competing for these same jobs. All right, so you know that. You've got that intelligence now. You know what's going to drive these companies now. You know that it's workforce. You know what that workforce needs. So what can you go back and do as a county commissioner in Gilmer County to make a difference on the economic success of your community? So let me share with you some of the things that I've seen over my tenure. You'll hear the same thing from Sarah Lynn and Laura and Ross and everybody else, it's not brain, as my preacher says, it's not brain science or rocket surgery. Because if it was, we couldn't have figured it out as Baptists, but we figured it out. So, the first thing, when we talk about successful communities, so those communities that get all this other stuff right and they're successful, they grow their own jobs, they keep their jobs, they bring new companies in, here's 4 or 5 things that set them apart. The first thing you can't do nothing about, I hate to tell you, but it's location. Location, location, location matters. I saw a map yesterday afternoon that showed most of the economic activity and announcements over the last couple years in Georgia, and they did follow most of the interstates, and they follow most of the 4-lane highways. So some of you can't do anything about it. You just have to have a different strategy. We'll talk about that later. But here's the interesting thing about location. You could get in the car right now with me, and I could take you to a community that is on the interstate. They got a college, a university, they got a technical college, they got a decent school system. They've got a nice amenity, a nice downtown, and they haven't seen an economic development project in 10 years and probably won't see them for the next 10. And then from there, we could drive over to Coffee County, which is about, anybody from Coffee County here? Not you, Sarah Lynn. Coffee County, Mr. Oscar's here. 45 minutes off the interstate, right? And we can take you to spec building after spec building after spec building that's full of companies that are innovating, doing good things, providing jobs in your community. Good location, not so great location. I'm from Fitzgerald, so I can say that. Anybody want to guess the difference between the 2 communities? It's leadership. Now, hang on a minute. So lately, my pet peeve has been leadership is a much misused word. Leadership can be good, leadership can be bad. Here's a term I prefer, servant leadership. The Coffee Counties of the world, Oscar, they've had a long history of servant leaders in elected office, in the private sector, working together to figure things out, make the investment, and do the good things, right? That makes a difference. I can tell you, I've taken so many companies to so many communities in this state, and I can sit there with the CEO and I can see it in their face when they meet the local delegation that meets us at the helicopter. And I know right then if this is going to be a 30-minute visit or if we're going to be here for about 3 hours. It's all over that quick. Leadership makes the difference. Now, so what are good leaders in those good servant leaders in those communities doing? Well, here's a couple of things. First of all, they're thinking regionally. That's hard for elected officials. I know. It's hard for local chamber folks to think regionally, right? Because we all got our football team on Friday night. There's a lot of history there to those county lines. The companies that I work with, they could care less what that county line is or how long it's been there or what your football team is. They don't care. That's not in their sphere that they think about every day. The successful communities are the ones that work together for 10 years, like our 4 counties did over here to recruit Baxter International. I can't remember how many times, maybe when I showed that land over there to companies. Well, I mean, it's been there forever. But those counties, I don't know if we have anybody from those 4 counties, but they made the decision a long time ago to share revenue, to work together, to market that site, because they knew on their own they probably couldn't land the big fish, but together they could. That's going to have the biggest, I mean, we haven't even started seeing the supplier network that's going to come in for Baxter that's going to change this part of the state. It's absolutely incredible. I applaud, Chris is here from Albany, I applaud what Southwest Georgia is doing right now. They've got a council where they're working together, they're marketing their region, and the economic developers down there and the county commissioners have said, you know what, it doesn't matter if it comes to Moultrie or it comes to Albany, we're going to share the same workers, it's going to have a good impact. Let's fight it out, let's get them here first, and then let's fight for it. And so those successful communities are like those over in Muskogee and that region that work together, that build it out that way. The other thing that good servant leaders and successful communities in Georgia are doing is they're diversifying their strategy. If your whole economic development strategy is dependent upon the state of Georgia flying in an airplane and bringing you a big auto manufacturer, you're going to be sorely, sorely, sorely let down. Those are good projects, and if they come, good luck. But if that's your only strategy, if that's all your development authority director is telling you about, then you've got a problem. The successful communities out there, yeah, they're investing in their industrial parks to make sure they've got a park that'll compete. They're also investing in tourism and marketing. They're also investing in being a camera-ready place so you can come in and film movies and videos and music videos and all the other things. They're investing in broadband because they realize much of the workforce of the future is going to work from home. They've got to have that type of infrastructure. They're doing something around, anybody here from Houston County? You know, Houston County has a great economic engine with the base, but they know long-term that's not going to be enough. They're diversifying, building their own business incubator right now. And so you've got good communities being smart, thinking about how they diversify that economy every day. You need to be part of that discussion, and a lot of times you got to lead folks. I'll tell you, folks in my business and economic development, we ease into that whole realm of we're just going to recruit the big manufacturing company. Those folks usually aren't that successful over the long term. So, those are a couple of good strategies here. Here's another one, and this might be one of the most important things for you to think about. Guys, everything you say and do, every letter you write to the editor, every dumb thing you post on Facebook, I know some of you have posted dumb things on Facebook, I know. We all have. Everything as an elected official that you do in the meeting, how you talk to the other commissioners, how you talk to the city, to the school board, all of that stuff adds up to your local business climate. Now you probably think nobody's looking. In some of your communities, you know everybody in the room during a commission meeting. I understand. I've lived there. But in a lot of them, you don't know everybody in the room. I had a project a few years ago that was a large distribution center. And it was a pretty big deal. All the southeast